want me weak, you want me brain dead and asleep. You want us trapped while you all laugh behind the scenes. You want us sick, you think we're dumb. You want us blind, then you want us drugged. You want us poor while you get more of everything. But you don't get to tell me what to think and what to do. You don't get to tell me what is true. 'Cause you're just liars, cheats and crooks. Change the rules and you burn the books. And so I don't believe a single word you say. You're all liars, fakes and cons. Want you out and we want you gone. So don't believe this time you'll get away. You want us tricked, you want us numb. You want us scared and you want us stung. You want us shocked and you want us bought in every way. You want our minds, you want our time. You want us friend up in your crime. I hope you know that it's time to go and we're taking names. 'Cause you don't get to tell us what to think and what to do. No, you don't get to tell us what is true. 'Cause you're liars, cheats and crooks. Change the rules and you burn the books. And so we don't believe a single word you say. You're all liars, fakes and cons. Want you out and we want you gone. So don't believe this time you'll get away. 'Cause we see la 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 all your lies. La 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 all your lies. You don't get to tell us what to think and what to do. You don't get to tell us what to think and what to do.
Enabling microphones to test. Gonna see if this works. What time is it, people? It's not 4 o'clock yet. Let me go see if I can hear my own voice over on locals.
You're all liars, fakes and cons. Want you out and we want you gone. So
all right, we're gonna put this on pause. Let me see, because let me make sure I'm back to the original. Okay, lighting is terrible, people, for obvious reasons. I got to remember I'm on this camera right here. I'm using earbuds, whatever the heck these things are. I don't like them. The question is, can you hear me? And is the audio good enough? It's not going to be good, but it's just got to be decent. Let me see here. We got nice hair, says Dashman91. Good day, Viva peeps. Let me just, before I play the actual intro video of the day, want to just respond to something which I saw in the chat, which I don't know who's responding to who. Let me just go up here and see if I can actually find out who is responding to who, because there's some negativity about a boot. I'm not going to get too far down to it. I have not been able to post the short videos to locals because uploading where I'm at takes forever. I mean, literally forever. I uploaded overnight, and then I found a secret internet which allowed me to upload a video much faster. It only took like an hour and a half. For whatever the reason, on locals, it just doesn't upload. And so I have not been able to upload to locals, but I've been able to upload to Twitter, Rumble, and Comitu. Let me just put this on Do Not Disturb. And so there's that. I'm not in ideal internet connectivity situations, and we're doing an early show today because we're going to be about 20 some odd people in close proximity having dinner tonight, and it's going to be amazing. Let me just go down here and see that we're all good. Okay, good. So this is the Sunday show. It's a little bit earlier than normal, and we're going to have a good show tonight. Barnes is not popping in, but Barnes is doing this early, and we're going to go over some developing news of the week. But going to get into the actual response. I'm going to do a test. I wanted to play this because it's hilarious, but I think it's going to get copy claimed on YouTube in a matter of seconds. This was to be the other intro song of the day because it's a work of frickin' genius. Kifnis is the man who did They're Eating the Dogs, They're Eating the Cats. and he's got 40 seconds of, it's not comedic genius. It's Mona Lisa level works of art. Listen to this. Me ready for the new year, 2024, coming up to you. Smashing the window. That's the actual clicker. Unnecessary drama. Gaslighters.
Random guy hitting my window. We're gonna.
He's South African, by the way.
Come back.
Classic humor. Let's see if I've played enough to actually get copy claimed by abusive copy trolls on ComyTube. Good evening, everybody. This is going to be the early edition of Viva and Barnes Law for the People on a Sunday night. What the F? Why so early? Because I've got a family dinner, and better early than never, because it would not be something we could do at 6 o'clock and miss family and friends who have come in from all corners of the world to celebrate the holidays together. How goes the battle? Everybody's seeing it's an amazing. I put out my video. We're having the discussion. We're going to talk about it tonight. The H1B, to be or not to be, debate of the millennia. Like you'd never known this was such a key, core, election-defining MAGA movement issue, because it never came up during the election in the detail in which it's come up over the last week. But we'll get there. Oh, how dare you, Viva? Have a life, says Plabius Flavis. So, yeah, that's it. I'm going to start with something else that we're going to get into in a little bit when Barnes gets here. There has been other news going on in Canada, and it's caused people to get on social media and act like the most holier-than-thou hypocrites on earth, period. Let me play you the video, then we're going to get into this. What's for dinner, Viva? Helton, a.k.a. Fasterman, says, what is for dinner? I don't know. I'm not cooking it. I know that much. Marion and I did dinner yesterday. And by Marion and I did dinner yesterday, I had very minimal input into the dinner. No, okay. We're gonna start with something right now. I haven't been able to clip stuff as freely as I want to, because it doesn't matter. Up in Canada, apparently the internet is as unreliable as the government. Bada bing, bada boom, people. Speaking of Canadian government being bad, unreliable, listen to this here. I'm going to play this. Apparently it's from Daisy Media on Instagram. I couldn't find Daisy Media having posted it on Twitter. I'm not trying to give credit or deny credit, because where I was able to find it was on 6Buzz TV, which is #1 in Canadian entertainment. And they've played this video, and you will not believe the virtue signaling firestorm that this has triggered on social media. We'll play it uninterrupted, and I'll tell you what I think in a second. But by the way, these are microphones on the earbuds. I don't know what it sounds like. I'll have to listen to it in a second. For context, for those who are listening on podcast, we're looking at a video filmed vertically, which is very, very annoying. But I think it's how the kids do it on Instagram, of Justin Trudeau seemingly getting into a vehicle, and I don't know where security is. We'll get there in a second. And this is the confrontation, and I'll put that in quotes. This is the, quote, abuse that Justin Trudeau has to deal with from, quote, rabid Canadian citizens. I'm being facetious here. Listen to this.
Mr. Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Please get the fuck out of BC.
Have a wonderful day, man.
Yeah, you suck.
That's the outrage, people. I mean, even in the trolling, Canadians are more polite. That's the clip that has caused a firestorm on social media. Let me play it again, because we want to talk about a few things in this video and then thoughts. This is a woman who's confronting, put it in quotes, Justin Trudeau while he's on vacation. Because if you don't know, by the way, we talked about it before they went on a 6-week vacation for Christmas. This is the same Justin Trudeau who has lost confidence of the Canadian government. Same Justin Trudeau Liberal Party who had their Minister of Finance resign 2 hours before she was supposed to provide the fiscal update, which would show that they were 50%, $23 billion over their projected deficit, resigns. The fill-in for Minister of Finance resigns as well. And then they go and break for 6 weeks for Christmas because nothing's too good for the government. Imagine people breaking for 6 weeks if they're not employed by the federal government. People, listen to this. Okay, one more time. She approaches him.
Mr. Prime Minister.
Yeah. How did she know? I wonder.
Please get the fuck out of BC.
Have a wonderful day, Mal.
Yeah, you suck.
I've got to tell you something. The virtue signaling that triggered on social media was the most astonishing thing on earth. Oh, he's on vacation with family, leave him alone. Oh, this is not the way we behave. First of all, if I may have a word of advice for Justin Trudeau's security, it is kind of concerning or disconcerting that there would be such lax security around Justin Trudeau that the woman could have been much more malicious than telling someone to get the fuck out of BC. She could have been crazy. She could have been violent. And she got right up in Justin Trudeau's face to shake his hand. All it takes is to be smiling at first, and then Justin Trudeau's security will let anybody get through. Okay, set aside the security lapse, and it's an absolute egregious lapse of security because Justin Trudeau, I mean, he needs it. You don't spurn and scorn tens of millions of people and then not think you've made a few enemies, and rightly so. But the bottom line, this woman's greatest transgression, the most emblematic symbol of Canadian political hatred, is a woman telling Justin Trudeau to get the fuck out of BC because nobody likes him and he sucks. She said it quite politely. And you get on social media, and the amount of people saying this is just terrible is obscene. I would not do it personally. And not because I wouldn't tell him to go F himself. I'll tell him to go F himself every day of the week. I wouldn't necessarily approach him in person in front of his kid while he's on. I couldn't kill us if he's on vacation anyhow. I wouldn't do it if I saw him in Parliament. But the idea that this guy, don't bother him while he's on vacation, skiing in British Columbia, while Canadians are going through what Canadians are going through because of him. Don't bother him while he's on vacation for 6 freaking weeks so that they can then prorogue Parliament when they get back and probably have a new election called right in time for a bunch of his other partners in crime to get their federal pensions. The man is on vacation with his family. Do you know how many people that man in particular prevented from vacationing with their family by way of their vaccine mandates for air travel, train, and bus? Can you imagine the guy who prevented people from traveling unless they submitted to an experimental medical procedure? Now other people out there feigning outrage that you might interfere with his family vacation. Go to hell. This man has not just ruined lives through policy, prevented other people from having the same freedoms to vacation with their family, both policy-wise and financially-wise. They say, oh, leave him alone. He's on vacation. There are people who have been injured and killed as a result of his federal policy, but don't tell him to get the fuck out of your province because you don't like him, because he's not welcome there, because he is hated and he is not welcome there. Give me a break. I made a joke. He deserves far worse than this. I say politically, maybe even legally. I do believe spiritually he's going to be damned to hell if he's not already in hell on earth, because he can't walk anywhere without angry Canadian citizens telling him to go fuck himself. So, bottom line, you're not going to score any points on social media by feigning outrage that someone had the audacity, after that man ruined the lives of millions of people, ended the lives of thousands, if not maybe a little more, harmed tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands. Oh, you don't outrage that someone told him to get the fuck out of their province because he's not welcome? He isn't welcome. And that's the reality of what happens when you act like a filthy tyrant and abuse your population. All right. Well, on that note, how goes the battle, people? Let me see what we got here by way of tip questions. And Gatfit is in the house. Gee, imagine a candidate running on, quote, "Make America Great Again," end quote. And then 2 of the most prominent and vocal members of that campaign saying Americans are too stupid to do tech jobs while paying and hiring immigrants and paying them less. From 2 immigrants, no. Why on earth, Viva, an immigrant, would homegrown? I'm not sure if I understand this here. Let me go read this over in locals and make sure I can read the entire thing. Where is locals here? Let me get I'll get the tip question because I like this when Barnes is going to get in here. Ganthet, okay. Why on earth, Viva, an immigrant, would homegrown Americans who've watched their jobs sent overseas for the last 40 years be outraged? Are you seriously that tone deaf on this issue? I love having first of all, Ganthet, systematically rude and systematically straw-manning people's arguments. It might make you feel good, but it's not how discussions are had or intellectual discourse. So let me see here. Why on earth would Viva want homegrowns who've watched their jobs sent overseas for the last 40 years be outraged? Are you seriously that tone deaf on this issue? what is the issue? We'll talk about when Barnes gets here, but the straw manning of my position on the issue, which has only been to understand the respective positions on all of this. Interestingly enough, nobody cared. Everyone was very happy to have the immigrants. I love how you're reducing. I'm pretty sure Vivek Ramaswamy was born in America. Vivek Ramaswamy, born, he was because he was running for president. Where was Vivek Ramaswamy born? He was born in Cincinnati, Ohio, and you still call him an immigrant. I'm not sensitive, but that's not even not rude. I mean, it is rude. It's also just factually incorrect. So you look at Vivek, and because he's Indian descent, although born in America and an American citizen, you call him an immigrant. Okay, that's interesting. Everyone was very happy to have the support of Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy until they had a policy disagreement on what is not, as far as I'm concerned, a core issue of the presidency or the election, to the point where it was never really discussed until now. Illegal immigration was, open migration was, open borders was, drug smuggling, fentanyl was. The potential arguable abuse of the H1B1 visas was not. So with that said, Ganthit, it would be nice and equitable to fairly represent everyone's respective positions on this. Mine was not taking a position one way or the other, but rather just understanding the respective arguments and coming to the conclusion that H1B probably has been exploited and abused by corporations. But the issue is also there are good arguments to support having something of a skilled immigrant policy in American politics. Let me scroll up here. Textmaster says, I've been in IT for over 20 years. Let me make sure that Barnes can actually get in here. I've been in IT for over 20 years. Ready when you are. And have hired hundreds of H1Bs during most of my tenure. I have never once seen an H1B replacement match the skill set of an American engineer. If the demand for IT skilled labor was so high, companies would not be forcing skilled American engineers to train their non-skilled foreign replacements. Those of us living with this could not feel more abandoned and discarded right now. With Elon, Vivek, and Trump, we have no champion. So this is Textmaster says, I've been in IT for over 20 years, worked with hundreds of H1Bs during most of my tenure. I have never once seen an H1B replacement match the skill set of an American engineer. Okay, fine. Now I understand the tenor of what you're saying. We're going to talk about with Barnes. There's a debate here because I think obviously with some of the examples of H1Bs that have been brought up, it's quite clear it's not necessarily a skilled immigrant type thing replacing or at least finding as an alternative that which you cannot find here. The interesting thing is where there's a little bit of cognitive dissonance is that when it comes to the H1B, or at the very least the output of American universities, we all agree they're woke institutions that are outputting crap. Theology, I don't want to be mean to theology or philosophy BAs that lead nowhere and that indoctrinate children. I mean, we all agree on that. And then when the argument is one that Vivek is kind of making, that, well, the product of the universities of America is inadequate for what we need, and therefore we need H-1B visas for certain issues, well, people agree on the first half and not on the second half, which is understandable as well, because in a country of 350 million people, not every single person graduating from university or getting trades is going to be a broken, woke, indoctrinated individual. But that is to say that there is a discussion here as to whether or not it's being abused, whether or not it has any purpose in the first place. And the debate, which was during the election, immigration is not about importing illegally cheap labor to pick the fruits and vegetables in the fields. We want skilled labor that benefits the country. I mean, that was the debate. And that is a logical thing to say. Yes, immigration has to be, on the one hand, good for the immigrant, but good for the country. And you're going to bring in skilled labor. You make sure that you're bringing in skilled labor who are going to work, pay taxes, and not be a drain on society. That was the discussion. And then overnight, it turned into the, I say, straw man or oversimplification that the H-1B one was always the immigration debate during the election, which it wasn't. There are arguments for and against. And when it comes to Elon's experience in big tech, whether or not he can find the skill that he needs, you can believe him. You can believe him, but think he might have economic interests which might be affecting his bias, or you can think he's lying, and the only reason he's saying it is because he can get the labor for cheaper through H-1B visas. Okay. But it is, I think that everyone treating this like this is the litmus test among the right, among MAGA. This is what I think happens when people get whipped into a frenzy. And when I genuinely believe that there are actors whipping this into a frenzy, and you just know that the T-Pains of the Twitter world are loving it. The AESs of the Twitter world are loving it. I bet Pac-Man's loving it. Watching I don't want to say allies in a cheap sense. Watching teammates fight among each other really, really makes the opposing team very happy. Here's what Elon actually said. This is from Judy Hodgkins over in our locals community. Easily fixed by raising the minimum salary significantly and adding a yearly cost for maintaining the H1B, making it materially more expensive to hire from overseas than domestically. I've been very clear that the program is broken and needs major reform. And that is, let me see if I can bring this up here, the tweet from Elon. I appreciate, by the way, the degree to which you actually hear the tapping on the keyboard. Here, this is what Elon has since said. Easily fixed by raising the minimum salary significantly, adding a yearly cost for maintaining the H1B, making it materially more expensive. The other argument that I think people should appreciate is that there is a benefit to capturing skilled labor from overseas. The two things can be true at once. You can have the skill here, which I have no doubt it exists, and it can also be worthwhile to bring over the skill from other countries and to make sure that other countries don't benefit from that skilled labor. And that you bring over skilled immigrants who will work, pay taxes, contribute to a functioning economy. That was the discussion when it came to the immigration debate during the election. It's since been oversimplified and I would dare say falsified. Entry required says she should have handed Trudeau an antler hat. Tony the Hat, $12, is raising a huge glass of dark Jamaican rum to my beloved, gentle Staffordshire Bull Terrier. Ooh, I love those dogs. Baby, who took the Rainbow Bridge last week. Would you gentlemen care to join me? I can't drink yet. It's still too early, but I'm going to have a good one later. Those are beautiful dogs, Staffordshire Terriers. Gantet says, discourse like the richest man in the world threatening people who disagree with him on the issue. Mr. Free Speech shutting off people's blue check mark. Don't spit in my face and tell me it's raining. Gantet, do you know? I mean, this is another thing where you have people who go out and allegedly, Laura Loomer's blue check mark was removed, as were a bunch of other people. Some people then say it's retaliation for political disagreement. Others say no, it's because Laura Loomer allegedly doxed the ex-employee. Others say that there's other reasons for this. Go check out Greg Bolden's recent thread about this, that there might have been a pay-to-post scam going on. So Gantet, systematically oversimplifying and systematically misrepresenting will not make it true. You spit in my face, don't call it rain and expect me to believe it. Laura Loomer, from what I understand, had her checkmark removed because she posted a doxing of the Twitter employee, from what I understand. If that's factually wrong, then correct me. But if it's factually correct, don't misrepresent it. Ryan PD911 says America first equals Americans only, Americans always. If there is a qualified American who wants the job, they get it over a foreigner, no matter what, full stop, the end. Yeah, I can tell you what ends up happening with these applications is that they post the application, and if they don't get a response from an American or they don't get an adequate application from an American, that's how they go, from what I understand, with some of these visas. But absolutely, if there is a limited number of positions, you go with an American-born, obviously, first. I mean, why would you not?
Do you see me? Am I here? Do you see me?
You're there, Robert. Our lighting. We both look like we've been thrown into dungeons of commie natures. You're looking good, though, Robert. How you doing?
Doing much better. Much better.
Amazing. Look, I'm taking shit for things that I never even said on the H1B issue, and then someone accused me of having a conflict of interest because I'm aspiring, to reside in America long term. And it's like, first of all, it's not a conflict of interest because it's not an undisclosed element for the purposes of influencing a decision. It's, you all know what I'm doing, and I have no decision-making power in all of this. I'm just, trying to accurately frame the two sides of this discussion without it entering into the vitriol that it's entered into. Robert, maybe people will listen to you, or maybe they're going to cancel you, depending on what you have to say about this. You've been following the H1B1 visa debate all week. What is your insight? I'm going to pick your brain as you go.
So first of all, Trump's position has always been clear. There's people suggesting that he's somehow moderated his position. He's always been crystal clear. He's all for legal immigration. He's completely against illegal immigration. He's made that legality his drawing line. He has said he has hired people on various visas every year at Mar-a-Lago and at others of his operations around the world. So the idea that people are pretending that somehow Elon has influenced his position This has always been Trump's position. He wants the best and the brightest in America. He wants the smartest and most skilled in America. He's made that clear repeatedly. His issue is with illegal immigration, not with legal immigration as a general rule. Now, what he did do in his first term, as Stephen Miller highlighted, who is his primary aide on immigration issues, founder of America First Legal, one of his best allies, was former chief of staff to Senator Sessions, and was key to Sessions endorsing Trump because of issues of war, trade, and immigration. And what Trump did when he was in the White House was make H1B visas work the way they're supposed to, which is when you have a unique set of skills outside the country, you can in America get the benefit of those unique set of skills through the H1B visa program. That's how it's supposed to work. Most of the complaints about that I have seen, 85%, are that the H1B visa program is not working as intended. And even Elon has come around on this. Trump tried to fix it when he was in there. Biden undid everything Trump did. And Elon says he agrees with everything Trump attempted to fix the program. So Elon is for the program in its intended form, not for the program in its current form. There is a percentage of people out there in Trump world that are opposed to all immigration, period, with no exceptions, no carve-outs, nothing. I get it, but they're in the minority. They're in the minority within the Republican Party. They're in the minority of the Trump coalition. They're in the minority of the Trump cabinet. I understand where people are coming from. They're like, we've tried immigration and it's failed for 50 years. So why don't we try no immigration for a while? I get their position, but it's not one that is likely to get through Congress at this point. It's not one that Trump himself agrees with. So some people just haven't listened to Trump. He's been saying for 6 years now, let's build a big, beautiful wall and then a big, beautiful door in the middle to make sure people can get through that are lawfully entitled to be here. They go through the proper process to be here. He's always felt that way. I'm probably a little bit more skeptical of immigration than Trump is, legal immigration, in part because of how easy it is to abuse. It's because I'm skeptical of the state. It's where my disagreement is with both him and Vivek and Robert Kennedy and others. And Ralph Nader, is they have confidence that government can fix things if you put the right people there or the right policies there. My view is government always creates more problems than net good. And it's just sort of built in. So I think the debate is a healthy debate, I think, to have. I think some people are a little over the top on both sides. I don't agree with Vivek that the problem is one of American culture. That's one that is common to a lot of Indian immigrants, what he was expressing. And you're seeing it pop up in other people that Trump has nominated. They've said things like Americans are low IQ and things like this. I mean, here a lot of the Indian almost all H1B1 visas go to Indians, people from India. Dots, not feathers, as an old friend of mine used to say. India has a historic problem of caste problems. In other words, that they even think based on your re-evolution, based on prior lives. That you are a inferior human being based on your intellectual capacity as they see it. It's a lot of the Brahmin caste is the elite caste, where Kamala Harris's mother came from. That's where a lot of the immigrants come from. And they don't want to, and Vivek won't say it out loud, but that there is an underlying snobbery, in my experience, within the Indian community towards Americans and others. And I get it. They come here. They're very successful. Indian migrants are some of the most successful. They're more successful than white native-born Americans in terms of wealth, in terms of income, in terms of wages, in terms of job status. So part of what you're seeing is an underlying, complaint about the 7-Eleven, stereotype, right, that Babylon Bee made fun of, that Vivek is all excited he's going to get to be in the White House 7-Eleven because of all the Indians that manage 7-Elevens, or the stereotype that they do. So some of this is underlying cultural conflict, and that's part of my issue with immigration. That people who look at immigration through a purely economic filter don't understand how societies work, because historically it's cultural clashes between groups that undermine a society more so than economic disturbance. And the issue here is you have people that come from a very different culture, very different background. Will people from India really blink twice about censorship? Probably not. It's not something that's ingrained into their cultural identity. An American, it is, even no matter which party your political spectrum you're a part of. So I think that the net effect is that I would be for reducing H1B visas even more, along the lines of what Trump was thinking about in his first term. I get the point that we want to recruit engineering talent from around the world, and we don't want companies leaving the United States to try to recruit that talent. So I get where Musk is coming from. There's some credence to that, but it's overstated because it undervalues the cultural conflict problem that he
at the risk
doesn't solve.
Sorry, at the risk of I don't know if it's going to be a rude joke, but there are people observing, like, if the concern is we got to get all that talent from India, why does America look the way it does, and why does what tech companies are actually in India versus other countries? And so, I mean, I appreciate the argument that it's been stereotyped to some extent, where we need to get those skilled Indian talent that we don't have here. But meanwhile, big tech is in Silicon Valley, not necessarily India per se. I don't want to.
Yeah.
But,
well, not only that, I mean, what people have been documenting online is it's become a massive scam. You have these companies set up that are Indian companies that bring in people to get access to the U.S., that they're often not the ones doing the work. They're often not as qualified as Americans who would be able to do that work, but at a higher market price. And it's like all the immigration arguments I've heard over the years, like, well, you won't have strawberry farms if you don't allow mass Mexican and Central American immigration, because Americans aren't going to work for as cheap as they want strawberries to be. And my view has always been, well, then what you end up doing is you end up either either you have a good that cannot be made with the wages allowed in the country, in which case that good probably shouldn't be there. In other words, that's a consequence of having a minimum wage policy, having minimum labor policies, so on and so forth. What J.D. Vance said is absolutely correct. Immigration has been driven by greed of big corporations and wealthy people, and there's balance. Do I want the Elon Musk to come to America? Yes, I do. Do I want the Viveks to come to America? Yes, I do. Do I want the guy that's the cheap knockoff that's just stealing jobs and lowering wages? No, I don't. And the question is, how many of the H1B visa applicants are the next Elon Musk, and how much of them are the next person just hurting America's jobs and wages and creating cultural conflict that doesn't need to exist here? And I think it's a good debate to have, is my take. I'm probably in between the positions. I think as it operates currently, it's a crock. It's not the expertise that it should be, that it's intended to be. Golf coach, golf instructor coach, golf professional. These are not what H1B1 visas. And you could go through.
I don't know if this is
90% of the H1B listings are not looking for the next Elon Musk. They're looking for, how can we hire somebody here in America, because the work needs to be done here in America. We can't outsource it overseas, so that we can outsource it inside our own country, and we recruit foreigners to do it. And this goes all back to the war conflicts, right? I mean, historically, societies and civilizations, somebody even mentioned, well, let's have an H-1B visa for the Army. And that's an interesting thought process. I knew someone who had proposed that people could become legal if they joined the Army, served in the military. I get that idea, but there's a reason why we quit using mercenaries as a general rule. Mercenaries are a risk. Anybody that studied mercenaries over the centuries, different civilizations, they flip sides with ease. They're not loyal for the same reasons. They may run and cut bait when they feel it's necessary. So I'm patriotic in that sense, and I want more people that are patriotic and loyal to America to be in those key positions of power and influence. So I think there's a balance, and I think Trump will find that balance. It will not be to abolish the program. And Elon's point was he doesn't like the residual remnant of bigots that are in the United States. And there's clearly some of those people. And then I think Vivek's fascinating. Vivek's still annoyed because he grew up in America, for those that don't know. And what he's talking about is an Indian subculture that comes to America. It's important to emphasize. People say, man, the Indians must be really smart. It's the Indians that come to America that make it to America, right? There's a certain cross threshold that you have to get there. It was similar for like a lot of Jewish immigrants, right? You had to have a certain skill set, acumen, and be above average to make it here in the first place. So we're getting the top 1% of Indian society. But I'm sure people like Vivek, where he grew up in a subculture that celebrated intelligence, celebrated academics, the average American public school does not. I mean, he's right about that point. He overstated his point, but he's not entirely wrong. Everybody that grew up in American public schools, it was the athlete that was celebrated, and the model that the woman or girl with looks who was celebrated. It was not the smart kid, boy or girl, that was celebrated. And in fact, normally they were treated very badly. And that's what Vivek is. It's kind of a revenge of the nerds kind of statement. Now what he's not admitting is that a bunch of people that are in India, what happens is Indian people from India get put in positions of hiring. And what do they do? They hire whom they know. They hire fellow Indians. They don't hire other Americans. They've been caught discriminating repeatedly in lawsuit after lawsuit, case after case. So the idea, Elon is saying that the ideal of H1B1 he is for against bigots. He has specifically gone out of his way to say, in its current form, it's unmanageable. So I think it was a lot of, and Laura Loomer's always looking for controversy. I don't like Laura Loomer. I'm never going to like Laura Loomer. I don't trust Laura Loomer. Laura Loomer's looking. She every time I turn around, she's trying to create conflict within the movement, not conflict with people outside the movement. So, why doesn't Loomer spend more time researching Bill Gates, than worry about Elon or worry about Vivek or worry about Robert Kennedy
or RFK Jr. before the election?
Exactly. She's always going off on somebody. She's an idiot. She's always been an idiot. She's always going to be an idiot. And she's a quasi-grifter. So her having an opinion, I could care less, to be blunt about it. She's attacked me repeatedly. It's she's always trying to cause trouble. Does anybody really think? Would you put Laura Loomer up in a debate with Vivek? Does anybody think Laura Loomer would win, or with Elon? There are some smart immigration people out there that would do numbers, would run around Vivek and Elon, to be frank, because what they both revealed this past week is they are both uninformed on the legal immigration problem. They're informed on the illegal immigration problem, but they don't realize, that Disney story that Steve Bannon was talking about, and I respect Bannon's perspective, and Bannon was more blunt about it than I am in that regard. I'm not all the way to where Bannon is at. But Bannon is like, I wouldn't be I'm not going to attack Elon as a globalist. Elon has been attacking globalists now for 2 years straight and has done more damage to globalists than Steve has ever done. So because of how he handled Twitter and what he's done globally. So I think that was excessive, but so was some of the commentary that anybody who questions H1B is somehow bad, that somebody should be censored because they're questioning H1B. There's people that are being censored just because they're affiliated with that conservative organization, influencer organization called Conservative OG. Too many of them, somebody, and I think Elon thought he was getting rid of the racists, the bigots. He got rid of people that he took away blue check marks from people that are not don't have an iota of racism in it. Some of whom had not even talked about the H1B visa issue. It's a good, robust debate that needs to be had. How much legal immigration makes sense? That's a cultural issue. That's an economic issue. It's a political issue. It's all of those things. I think Trump has the right position, some balance. We want to bring people in. They're the best, but we want to make sure they're the best. And I think that's the logic that makes sense. It should be a difficult application process.
No, and not that I'm going to get particularly irritated with Ganthet because he's a member of our community, and it's consistent, this type of rhetoric, but to Strawman, I've raised even a concern that I don't think has been raised in the context of this debate, where if the idea is you want this highly skilled labor from foreign nations, because you can't get it here or because you want to hog all of that skilled labor, it does pose national security issues if you have H1B visas going to China, India, countries that are not necessarily on amicable terms with America. And so there's even a national security element to it that I don't think has been fleshed out properly.
And what people on our board have said that are in tech have said it's been badly abused. So it's where it's like, okay, Vivek, did you not know it was being badly abused when you decided to go on this rant? Elon, did you not know it was being badly abused? They need to be. But what's amazing is these are billionaires who Elon allowed his own platform to be used to attack him. I got to give credit to a guy who does that. He's got $1 billion platform. He could just take everybody off that's bad. And he doesn't. Instead, he engages many of them. So I don't have any. I've been a skeptic of Elon. Going back, people can go back and watch the hush hushes that are progressive. I have buddies of mine that had sworn by Elon. They ended up right. I ended up wrong. So I'm not going to come back and bash the guy because he thinks the policy that helped get him here to America, he doesn't want to see closed. That's a pretty reasonable position for a guy in his position to have.
I'm going to bring this one up. This is Spam Ranger from our local community. It says, it's a psyop. Democrats have tricked oblivious MAGA Republicans into fighting over 65,000 H1B visa recipients as they flood the border with 10 million illegals. MAGA Republicans are gullible. I can't say that I disagree with this observation because I do think a lot of this infighting has been...
Illegal immigration is far more important than illegal, number one.
The H1Bs, I mean, it's 65 to 100, maybe 130,000 every year. So you could say over 10 years, it's a million plus. But the fact that this has become the new litmus test, and it's true, to the distraction of the potential for Biden, I don't know, mass amnesty of illegals. I mean, it's such a drop in the bucket as to the actual problem of the immigration problem that to merge this as though it was always the immigration problem feels like a psyop, and it feels like there are people out there who are directly participating in exacerbating this strife among MAGA.
And now is not really the time to do it. It's like, I love Mary Bowden. She's done a fantastic work on the vaccine, fantastic work throughout COVID. I get her concern that she wanted to see more discussion by all of the MAHA, Make America Healthy Again folks, of let's ban this COVID vaccine. That has never been Bobby Kennedy's view. I got into this debate in court in the Fifth Circuit where a judge said, oh, you just want to prohibit people from even have access. That has never been Bobby Kennedy's view. He wants informed consent, pure and simple. That no vaccine should be made available that doesn't provide informed consent. He's always had that position, but that's the universal medical position since 1947 with the Nuremberg Code. That's all Robert Kennedy was affirming, and that's all any of them have done. And like some of them now, they want the COVID vaccine to be a debate topic with the nominations. I get that. All that's going to do is get our best people not nominated at this stage. There's plenty of time to work on that, and there's plenty of ways to work on that. I'm more aggressive than most, obviously, on it. But I'm not for things that backfire, things that aren't. I'm for things that work, that get you better solutions. The things that don't work, I'm not in favor of. And obsessing over H1B visas is not the priority on immigration. And so it's all the criminals that are here is priority number one. Priority number two is sending a message to everybody, hey, don't come here. That's the reason why Trump will do high profile. Will he be able to deport 10 million people? No. Will he do some high profile ones that the media finds shocking that they blast all across global media? Yes. Why? Because Trump knows that will keep everybody from getting in those lines to come all over again. He knows that people are like, Trump's up there now. I get up there now. I'm going to jail for 10 years. God knows where I'll end up. Trump wants people to think that, so they stay home. So that's how he can solve the immigration problem without having massive expenditure of resources. But, part of that is cleaning up H-1B visas, cleaning up our visa program. All of that absolutely needs to be done. But some of the people that see immigrants as just a bonus because of economics are forgetting the cultural and political change. I mean, I get Vivek and some others. Indian Americans still voted for Harris. So they are a very Democratic-leaning group. So why you want more of them easily accessing at American society and then ultimately, because what happens is they come here and then they become citizens down the road. And if you look at how it's working, many of them aren't even doing the work and aren't even that specially skilled. It's often being subcontracted out to somebody in India who's actually doing the work anyway. So you already have that dynamic. It's the people that are in the tech industry, that are in the immigration field, that say this has gone. I mean, for example, I strongly support asylum applications. The abuse of asylum by the left has utterly gutted the ability to get people who have legitimate. We've talked about it on some of our cases.
Mm-hmm.
I love here.
I remember there was I think it was a Chinese guy who was persecuted for being Christian in China, and that was his asylum claim was denied. But everyone who crosses the southern border is deemed to be an asylum seeker. Just give them the temporary protected status.
So you have people with people with real asylum claims that because people are mad about abuse of asylum claims, now they don't want there to be any asylum claims taken seriously. Once there's there's always going to be people that have legitimate asylum claims. And so so I think it's been a mostly good debate. You saw some people pop up that are just love controversy. Laura Loomer loves conflict. When let me know when she goes a month without conflict. Right? I mean, that's why I don't take her seriously. I never will. There's that crowd that you can just ignore, frankly. But the more impactful people, both in Trump world and Musk and the rest, and I thought Cernovich made a lot of good, insightful comments on both directions. I think there's a robust, healthy debate to be had, but they can't be dumb about it. They can't start calling them all. What's this woke right stuff? Everybody, it's like their new popular phrase. I don't even know what it means. If I don't know what it means, it's a useless phrase.
It's a useless phrase to begin with. I think it started with James Lindsay, who pulls some of the same tactics that the left does, and then they call him a woke. It's the bottom line. Woke, by definition, needs to be progressive and overly progressive. So you can't have overly. I mean, it has to be another word, anti-woke, on the right. But I think what we mean is people who thrive off conflict to some extent.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they build their whole MO on. That's what they do. So I think there was a little bit of that this past week. But I thought what was interesting is this debate was really only happening on Twitter. For the most part, it was not happening anywhere else. Now, Cheryl Atkinson, if you have access to her Full Measure News show that's available on various cable networks all across the country, also I think her site, they interviewed me up at Amos Miller's farm. So that's being broadcast today. So we'll see how that goes. Tucker Carlson did a documentary that he's yet to release. He's waiting to find the right time to release his Amos Miller documentary. But to me, those kind of topics, like, for example, why we're obsessing now over trying to get Bobby Kennedy. Kennedy's been very clear what he thinks about the COVID vaccine. It's not like he's been bashful about it. He's taken all kinds of heat for his willingness and readiness to be critical of it. He's saved all kinds of lives by being critical and skeptical of it. To demand that he make that his one calling card for his confirmation is just dumb. I mean, I'm and again, I don't want anybody to confuse me. I'm a big fan of people like Mary Bowden and others. I'm just saying politically, what you have is a lot of amateurs, right? Most of these people have never been in Washington before. They don't. Now, Bobby Kennedy does. I mean, going way back in time, he's knee-high to a grasshopper, quite literally. But, these people know how Washington works. Trust them that they have the best instincts at heart. And, don't immediately turn on Trump the moment you don't like something he says or does. Don't immediately demand Bobby Kennedy endorse all of your positions, or all of a sudden you're not going to embrace him. He's got enough enemies already. So let's get these people nominated and through, and then we can debate the next set of policies. But these are some of the best people that have ever been nominated to the positions they're being nominated to. Same at the NIH, same at the FDA. Now, I've said I think the USDA could use some upgrades, but interestingly enough, people in our board at vivabarneslaw.locals.com know the Secretary of Agriculture, and they say that she grew up on a farm and is very farm-oriented and will be good for small farms. So that's very positive. I just didn't know that. So I hope that is the case. But as a whole, people are nitpicking a little too soon. I get what they're concerned about. Be concerned a little bit later. These are still the best in the group. I mean, you're going to have the most anti-immigration since 1920 in Homan. So it's not like immigration won't be tackled. It will be. But I think it was a good debate though for people like Musk and Vivek to remember. Economics is not everything. Culture and politics matter, and Americans being excluded from tech is not okay, and it's never been okay. And they needed to be slapped around a little bit to remind them of that. In the end, Elon comes right back to the same position Trump has. H1B, great idea, terrible in action.
Mm-hmm.
Let's fix it for good.
And I'll bring one up from Ganthet here, which says the education system in America sucks. Funny how 4 of the 5 top universities in the world are U.S., in which 30% of the students are immigrants. Explain that, Viva, with it being a straw man. Well, that wouldn't be a straw man criticism. That would be throwing other stuff out for the discussion. I just Googled it as we're talking. 3 of the top 5 are in America. Oxford is number 1, apparently, according to this list. Say it again?
And probably Sorbonne's up there. There's no question the U.S. higher education system is very good in STEM, in the STEM industry, STEM fields. That's why they all come here. The Chinese and Indian immigrants, about 90% are from China and India. 75% from India if it's H1B visas. Now there's issues because China, with its Confucius Institute, has been bribing professors and others as they got caught by Trump, and then Biden came in and just let them all go, incredibly. But that's the issue where we have to be concerned about protecting of trade secrets. China is a maestro at stealing other people's inventions.
No, they're open and proud about it. There's no question about that. And then the rest of his comment was H1Bs paid 30,000 less than the median wages. I think we agree that that's part of the problem. You got sticks
and
here.
Musk agrees that H1B at a minute have to have a hard cap, and it has to have a hardcore bottom of payments. That's got to be people being paid really well, because if they're not getting paid really well, then they're not really unique.
There was here we go. I find that one other question people are asking me. Robert, Biden can blanket pardon all illegal immigrants. It wouldn't be granting them citizenship. It would be pardoning them for the federal crime of having crossed the border illegally. I'm not wrong in that he can do that, but he can't fast track or mass grant citizenship to illegals.
They can't give them citizenship. The courts have all recognized that Obama's dream proposals, when he did it unilaterally, were not within his constitutional authority. It was only what was subsequently passed in the Dream Act that was found to be legal. Everything else was ultimately found not to be legal, but how you enforce it, the courts went back and forth on during Trump's era. There's. What was your question, though? I just blanked.
Oh, no, it was whether or not he can.
Yes, preemptive pardons. Yes, he can preemptive pardon. You just go back and look at the Jimmy Carter pardons of everybody who fled to Canada and elsewhere to avoid the draft.
But
no names were
hypothetically, though,
every individual.
No, but if he pardons illegals, he pardons them for the crime of having crossed the border illegally. Does that mean, one, they can't be deported? Hypothetically, and two, does it facilitate any acquisition of citizenship?
It doesn't prohibit citizenship. It doesn't provide for it either. And in terms of deportation, that's been applied to U.S. citizens in the past. So go back and look at the Palmer raids and Rosa Luxemburg and others. There have been people that have been deported without being found to have committed a criminal violation. So I find that problematic personally, but I can tell you that there is court precedent that you don't have to have committed a crime for deportation to be a legal option of the U.S. government. So that's now I think the easier way for Trump to do it is to offer money if they leave, trouble if they stay, and sometimes that gets people to jump to come back and apply legally.
I don't remember what happened when Angela Merkel, I think, offered something of a similar thing to all of the Syrian refugees in Germany. Let me just get the remaining questions here so that we don't skip over. The tech bros were behind the degradation of our education system, promoting sexual deviance to kids and censoring parents who tried to prevent it. Won't H1B benefit a system that's used against us?
It varies. It depends entirely on its implementation. But if they limit it to high-end earners with unique skill sets, then the cultural concerns wouldn't apply. I would note these tech bros are opposed to woke. Right? That's what David Sachs, Vivek Ramaswamy, Elon Musk, they all have in common, is they were enraged by what took place. Elon personally, because it happened to one of his kids, the woke gender identity, all that stuff. So they have not promoted that at all. The people who are talking about that have promoted it are people that are anti-Trump in the tech world in Silicon Valley. So but it's not these Trump supporters that are secretly wokesters. That they're not. They just know economically this works really well. I mean that's how they're looking at it. In the tech space, you go get your engineers from India. That's been sort of the policy now for 2 decades in the tech world. And they have a lot of assumptions that I think are mistaken that they go into that. Eric Weinstein has also done a great breakdown of the history of how H1B came about. And it was a secret conspiracy of corporate America to, in the guise of recruiting the best and the brightest, be able to lower the wages and reduce the American demand, including inducing Americans to not seek out postdoctoral degrees. And it feels like engineering, et cetera, because their goal was to not have those people competing with them. So they would have an easy excuse to pay somebody a third of the price from India or China.
Mm-hmm. If I can, Robert, I'll read that. It was actually from Brut Di Satva over on Rumble. What's your opinion on Eric Weinstein's view that H1B was an attempt to crush American top talent from the beginning and, in fact, was a primary reason for America losing its technological edge?
He makes a very good argument.
Okay.
Very, very good argument.
And now, to be fair to Gantit, I'm going to bring up...
I was going to say it was delivered by China and India. China and India wanted to, like natural economic competitors, they wanted to dominate the tech space. They've been unsuccessful, I would note. It was like India had to drop out of certain global testing competitions because the Indian population as a whole tested below average globally. Right. So the idea that's where Vivek doesn't really make a lot of sense. What he means is the Brahmin culture that came to America had a different set of values than what he ran into in the middle income American public school. And that's true. But it ignores the broader points that are well made by Eric Weinstein and others.
I almost as a joke, but it's not a joke. If you watch the first Harold and Kumar, go to White Castle, and you'll get an idea for the stereotype of the cultural differences between Indian Americans and Americans, or Native, European, Middle America, and the Indian immigrant who has a certain conception of America and what's required for an Indian immigrant to succeed. And the movie's freaking hilarious, so you should watch it. But look, I want to read Gantit's. Let me read this one.
The religious aspect, because there's an interesting gap. So like there's Hindu and then there's Buddhist, as I recall, right? With India, most are Hindu, but there's some that are something else, like what Harmeet Dillon is. But I'm blanking. Whatever that religious sect is, that's not a majority in India, they have been trending very Trumpy in America. The other Indian Americans have been trending anti-Trump. So it's curious. I'm curious where they came from and which background they came from as to which is which. But it goes to, Trump has occasionally made this point that we need people that are culturally simpatico. He goes, we don't need America haters coming in. Mm-hmm. And he suggested that that's why we have to be doubly careful with Islamic immigrants. He's like, at least something's going on. It ain't working out right. But you keep seeing these Islamic immigrants keep causing problems.
No, we see what's happening or not happening in Poland, and you can either be apologetic for making decisions in the best interest of your people, or you can be unapologetic. Like I think it was I forget what his name is, but he was on an interview. It was great. Let me read this one.
Sikh as well. Sikh are trending Trumpy. We should let in more Sikh and exclude the others. I can't say that.
Gantit says. Gantit in our community says, I watch you because you seem to be authentic. I'm a stubborn southern redneck. I fight hard and play hard, and I'll argue my point right or wrong passionately, maybe even a fight or two. After the first round's on me, so feel free to throw a punch figuratively my way. I'm not polite or diplomatic, and I don't expect it in return. I say what I mean and mean what I say. I'll say only this to that, Gantit. You can be impolite and you can be undiplomatic, but if you're unfair in how you approach a discussion, that's where the law. I don't care if you're polite when you're unfair or impolite, but if you mischaracterize what I say so that you can then punch, and then that unfair is not a question of diplomatic.
You create a fake version of your opponent's argument, so it's easy to knock down. That's where the word straw man argument comes from. It's a sign of a weak argumentative style. So someone should be ashamed of themselves if they're doing that.
I'm going to say, has Viva addressed the fact that Angela Merkel named her book after me? It's called Freiheit. Oh boy, should we be concerned? Seriously.
I didn't know that. That's classic.
Yeah, sorry, if I'm touching these earbuds, they don't stay in my ear, and I hate these things more than anything, but I think it cuts out the background noise.
Angela Merkel was the first trans president, but I guess not.
No, but apparently Candace Owens is still going to convince me that Macron's wife is a man, and there's a lot of people who seem to believe it, and I'm not even saying that to make fun. I need very, very solid proof on that. Hubcap says, I have a buddy in Pennsylvania who has been constantly passed over for unqualified women when he is more qualified and tenured, doesn't have a lot of resources to pursue it. Could you help, Barnes? Say good luck legally.
Yeah, it's figuring out how to prove it. Yes, it's illegal to be discriminated against, and yes, I suspect universities and schools are doing it routinely and regularly, but it's not easy to bring suit to prove it. That's the short answer.
Now I'm going to get to a bunch of the rumble of the comedy rants on tube over there, but I prefer they get rid of DEI so people hired based on merit, says Benny D. Then create tech school pipeline, eliminate all the fluff, and graduate techies in 2 to 3 years with a degree. Help America first.
I was going to say one caveat there. All these people saying, "Hey, you should believe in merit," then that means you should believe in a global labor market. I don't.
Well, no, but that people have floated the argument. If we believe in merit and you believe in competition, then you believe in competing with the best from abroad. I mean, I understand the argument, but
no, our country is for our citizens. It is not for other people's citizens. So we make accommodations to have new people come here because it improves the lives of our citizens. It does not improve the lives of our citizens. I ain't for it. I don't care if they're more skilled or more talented in commie China.
And that is the question, is to say, like, the immigrants that come in who are going to be value added, if it's to the detriment of the local population.
That's why Trump always makes that point. It's another point that people miss. He'll often say about immigration that it's not only that they're economically the top 1%, because they've got to love America. That's what he means by that. In other words, he'll take an Elon and a Vivek. He's not going to take these others. And I think that because he's onto something there. That immigration is cultural, immigration is social, immigration is political, immigration is religious. So the idea that you can just look at it from an economic filter and say, well, we want the best and the brightest from the whole world to compete for the American jobs. No, we don't. We want those people competing for American jobs that are going to make American citizens' lives better and promote America's societal values. And the smartest Muslim terrorist doesn't fit that category.
It is also, I will refuse to believe that in a population of 350 million, you're not dealing with the same cream of the crop that you get from a population of 0.7 billion, and that you need to import them. That's a if you're a country like, we'll say a territory like Denmark, although it's not Denmark, sorry, Greenland, or a small country, I don't know. Statistically, you might have a better argument. 360 million people, you've got the smartest people on earth there, and if you need to import them, that might be pretextual and not an actual necessity. Let me bring this up. Someone sent me this here, and it's let me see if I can refresh.
When it comes to immigration, my view is we need an immigration system that selects for your readiness to assimilate, your ability to speak English, your ability to know something about the country through civics exams, your love of the country, your ability to make contributions. That's one view of immigration, and we'd probably have less immigration in the near term as a result of that, but it's because it's based on the principle of what stands for pro-American values. But the protectionist view is I don't care about any of that. I just think if a company can hire somebody
now, is that not going to work?
To do a job for $20 an hour versus being able to hire 2 immigrants to do the same job for $10 an hour, we should stop those immigrants from coming in, so the American company has to hire the American worker. The problem is that results in fewer workers being hired. So the reason I stand for the national libertarian perspective, which is to say that I don't want to replace the left-wing nanny state with a right-wing nanny state. I want to dismantle the nanny state. That, I believe, should be the future of America first. When it comes to
okay, so the person who sent that said Vivek espoused hiring cheaper immigrant labor, and listening to that argument, I'm not sure that that's what I understood. I'm not trying to defend Vivek. It sounded like we were saying if we have more employed, it's somehow better for the economy than having fewer employed but with higher wages. I'm not sure that the math on that maths.
He agreed with the cultural requirement as a precondition for immigration, but then otherwise opposed the economic argument.
Okay, that's what I sort of.
In other words, what he was really saying was that he doesn't think economically it works to do what Trump is going to do. So we'll see. I mean, he's not going to have any role in that. His role is to figure out ways to make government more efficient. Same with, and they could fix up the immigration program as part of that, he and Elon. They would have some credibility in that regard if they came forward and said, here's a more reasonable compromise plan. But that's where they're going to be. They're not going to be making tariff decisions. They're not going to be making most of the sophisticated studies that have been done show that the immigrants net cost working class people, that it's a net loss. So they're looking at it from a global perspective. Yeah, you add your GDP, there's another person involved, that's going to increase your GDP by definition. The question is not, do you measure your society's success by GDP, or do you measure it by its values? Do you measure it by the well-being of its citizens? And there, Vivek is being inconsistent. Now, what he's really suggesting is our citizens are going to be better off when we have maximum GDP. That's kind of what he seems to be saying. I disagree with that. I disagree with that entirely. It was like if people want to see another version of this, look at Tucker Carlson's argument with Ben Shapiro about because this is another place where Elon is on a different side. Elon's on the automation side. So what does that mean? Automation poses a greater long-term threat to America's good jobs than immigration does. Because automation could our best paying working class jobs out there right now today in America, we're one of the best, truck driver. Elon's looking at making trucks automated such that there's just nobody there. There's nobody driving. I have doubts about whether that will ever come about, but he's achieved more than I thought he would achieve anyway in other areas, so maybe he will succeed there too. Problem is, as Tucker pointed out to Ben Shapiro, Shapiro's like, shouldn't we be for that? Tucker's like, absolutely not. You're going to destroy one of the mainstays of working class culture. And have you thought about the long-term consequence of that? A friend of mine had a tweet about it today saying, look at how it's destroyed the whole marital life and social life, how working class men's jobs being destroyed is destroying our entire culture, is destroying our way of life, leading to drug abuse, leading to a host of other issues. And that's what they miss when they only measure material well-being.
And I was going to say, the steelman retort to that is, well, the jobs can go automated, and that'll, the companies should pay a certain amount for the people who have been cut out of that market, sort of like a UBI. But my response to that is, getting money for free while you sit at home, it's not going to lead to good things. And
right.
so filling an industry.
We're doing that right now with Social Security disability payments in working class culture. And they use it to buy, opioids. I mean, it doesn't work. People need pride in what they do, particularly working class men, probably more so than anybody, than any group. It applies to universally, but it really applies, at least historically, to working class men. When working class men lose the ability to provide and protect, the entire culture collapses. It does within a generation. All of a sudden, family marital rates will decline, divorce rates will spike, church attendance rates will decline, community participation rates will decline, suicide rates will rise, anxiety rates will rise, depression rates will rise, life expectancy will shrink. We already know what taking the economic approach, the Walmart approach to solving problems has done. And so the degree Vivek celebrates the Walmart approach, he can go back to India because that ain't an option here. That ain't going to be an option here. And needs to pay more attention to what JD is saying, his buddy, who named his kid after Vivek, which is we got to look at culture. And that, when he first wrote Hillbilly Elegy, Vance partially blamed the culture. I think he blamed it too much. When I thought a lot of the issue is obvious. That culture was there 200 years ago when everybody was working hard. So it's not like the culture changed of Appalachia. They have the same set of values. They believe in revenge. There's a lot of things like that that are unique to Appalachian culture. I grew up on the southern tip of it in Chattanooga, East Ridge. At the end of it literally means east of the ridge, Mountain Missionary Ridge, which is one of the last mountain regions in the Appalachians. And what it destroys their culture. What happened I noticed this throughout Europe. You can see it with African American culture. African American had lower unemployment in 1960, lower unemployment African American men than white men. And so what happened? They took away we demanufactured America's urban core that we had built up during World War II. And all of a sudden, all these people that had fled the South and come up north for jobs suddenly didn't have them. What happened? As their ability to provide and protect disappeared, criminality spiked, divorce spiked, children born out of wedlock spiked. This is not a sustainable model. Not everything is based on dollars and cents. And that's where sometimes the libertarian perspective, the Vivek perspective gets lost.
And I say, or you have to measure it monetarily over a longer period of time, or factor in other costs which are intangible but nonetheless directly correlated. Let me bring this up. I'm going to go through a bunch of these just real quick, and we'll get on to another topic in a sec. Meredith G says, when you import an immigrant population, you import their cultural problems, and we should be discriminating. See the Haitian problem. If we need more U.S. talent, we should think apprenticeships. Absolutely. And by the way, everyone's like, Viva, what do you think about Canada being the 51st state? The joke. And I'm like, first of all, I still think it's a joke. But if you think Canada is a liberal snowflake hellhole communist region, do you want to amalgamate that into a 51st state? Like, good. You'll get Quebec. You'll get a very progressive separatist Quebec. You'll get a very liberal Ontario. It seems that the only provinces America might want to amalgamate or probably to the west and maybe the Maritimes to a lesser degree. But yeah, go annex Canada and you'll see the population that you have there after having done it. I'm going to resolve to be.
Let them vote. That's what we got to do. Just
Say
take
that
all their
again?
money, take all their labor, take all their property. Don't let them vote. Old school.
I'm going to resolve to be more active this year, says Cheryl Gage Good. Crash Bandit says, when I went through mechanical engineering school, I had to take 3 art classes and 0 business finance classes. What would that fluff up? Okay, scroll down here. Let's see that. So basically, the liberal idea has been you can be any person from any part of the world, and when they make contact with secular liberal capitalism, they will abandon their cultural practices.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
that's the old fui comma end of the world routine that proved that turned out to be dead wrong. And the critics said so from the get-go. They said after the Cold War is over that as things globalize, things will tribalize, and that's exactly what's happened. It hasn't led to this George Soros, open borders, wondrous, everybody hug each other, grow, a ceaseless wealth kind of environment that they predicted, because it's contrary to the human history.
This was not on our menu, Robert. I'll pick your brain if you have any insight about it. But another, call it, fight among people. I mean, Michael Yon has been very critical of Trump for a long time, but fighting with Jack Posobiec over the Trump talking about taking over the Panama Canal.
As it said in the great movie with Pierce Brosnan, that I'm blanking, the Tailor of Panama, as one American general says, "Gentlemen, there's a star missing from our flag."
So what is your what's your take on the debate about how Trump taking or America taking back control of the Panama Canal, how it works, what the problem is, and who's to blame for it?
Well, legally, Trump is correct that if there is any jeopardy to the operational security of the Panama Canal, we can go take it back. That's part of our treaty agreement with Panama when we restored the Panama Canal to Panama. Even though Americans were the ones who built it and died building it, designing it. I understand what Carter was up to. He was trying to have a little bit less of an imperial footprint in Central and South America. And most Americans are in complete denial or lack of understanding about how bad American intervention has been. I mean, it's not a coincidence that in the 60s, every country in Latin America had a dictator, every single one. They had no democracies in the entire continent. And that's directly connected to the United States of America. So, the same with, there probably never is a Che Guevara if we don't overthrow our Beñas in Guatemala. If we don't overthrow him, he probably stays there and becomes a little lefty doctor instead of a radical pro-communist. So we should be careful about, take Venezuela. We decided to screw around Venezuela a lot over the last decade and a half. So what did? They decided to pull a Castro and empty their prisons and say, here's the quid pro quo. We'll give you free tickets to America. You can get out of jail as long as you go right to America. And they'd already built up some of the nastiest, most brutal reputation in the world. And now we're seeing that consequence all across the United States. That should be, by the way, Trump's priority. Number one priority, get the Venezuelan gang deported. I'd deport them right back to Venezuela. I don't care if they take them. I don't just say, get off the plane, we're out of here. This was Venezuela's idea in the first place. Now, maybe we could stop messing around in Venezuela. Let the Venezuelan people figure out their country, not us, for the love of the good Lord. But that's where a lot of that is coming from.
I'm going to read one here. This is from Crash 105 because it's going to segue into another discussion. Viva Barnes. I have a theory that the amount of pardons being given up by Biden regime and the fact that Biden is mentally delinquent at this point, the people behind him, the deep state, are selling pardons. What are your thoughts? Delinquent or not.
Every single administration sells pardons. Every single one. So did Trump. Trump didn't do it himself, but people around Trump did. I mean, it was part of my annoyance. There were a group of us that deliberately did not take any client seeking a pardon or commutation so that we could promote the pardon of Julian Assange. And I was annoyed, and we almost got that through because Trump took us more seriously because he knew none of us were getting paid by anybody. And so that gave us some credibility. Historically, what happens is all the big law firms pitch people that are in serious criminal difficulty of any kind huge fees, and they guarantee them, or they get as close as they can to guaranteeing them pardon or commutation. And Biden, when he was vice president, was pitching this to people, except he was pitching that he could get a declination of prosecution for a donation. So, I guarantee you, the entire Biden crime family is looking to cash. This is their last cash in. They know Joe's done. This is it. There's no more money on this money train. It is all gone. So now is the time for them to get out and about and cash in one last time. So I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of people on that list. But Joe is so mercurial, you never know who he's going to pardon and who he's not. Now, there's people on that list that he should pardon, but there's people on there that he shouldn't. I'll give an example who don't pardon. Don't pardon the guy that rapes the mother and then the young daughter. That is who he pardoned this past week. It's like,
well,
at that point. If we're going to pardon the worst criminal in the entire federal prison system, pardon everybody, because 2/3 of them have probably got railroaded anyway.
Well, hold on, not to be just so that nobody accuses of inaccuracies. Was it a pardon or a commutation from death penalty for that particular guy?
So what's interesting is right now in the parlance, it's a very good point you make. They're calling everything, like we go to Kalshi, you look at who there's betting options on who Trump will pardon, Biden will pardon. I was curious how they defined it. They're defining any kind of legal relief as a pardon.
Okay.
And that was commutation, but you're right. I think Biden did not issue pardons to any of these people that most recently, the 37. He just commuted their death penalty sentences to life in prison.
Yeah, which is, I mean, because this is, this is where, fighting with or listening to people who are ideologically disaligned has its benefits. Someone on Twitter says, oh, it's not like he let them go. He just commuted their death sentence. Like, okay, so first of all, let's operate on the basis that that's what he did, because that's what I understood he did as well. He commuted the death sentences of these violent murderers, but not terrorist or race-motivated ones. The guy who shot up the white dude there and the Tsarnaev brother. And I'm like, that. So what's he basically saying? That, terrorism and race-related murders are really bad. You don't get the commutation of a death penalty, but just egregious murder. Like, is there a steel man as to the process that these individuals were found guilty and sentenced to death? Or is it just he doesn't believe in the death penalty unless it's for terrorist or race-related crimes? Like, I don't understand the logic behind it.
It was just to satisfy liberals. Liberals are fine with the race-related groups not getting the benefit of it, but they think everybody else, they're opposed to the death penalty generally. So they would be for commutations for everybody. But Biden was like, well, the ones the liberals hate, I won't commute. Everybody else he did on the death penalty side, but there weren't that many. There's only 37. So
first of all, I just had a thought. We're going to call it commutations for commies, but bada bing, bada boom. Okay, so the pardons, the Biden. That I wanted to touch on that. While we're on the topic of Biden, Robert, the thing that I don't know what's going on. What's the Biden? Oh, geez, Luis. The subject that we're going to talk about with Biden, that he had a court, there was a ruling that I'm not familiar with.
And what's interesting is so this was one of the Biden administration's latest policy efforts in the past year was to force people to disclose the beneficial ownership of all their small businesses and disclose who else was an investor. That got a lot of controversy because that'd be a lot of intel and information for the federal government to have. And they were going to require as an IRS rule, you disclose that. A group sued and got an injunction, but the injunction only applied to the parties to that case. So the question was, what was the government going to do? Were they going to push it anyway? Well, they decided last week not to push it. They've decided that based on that decision, it is purely voluntary whether you disclose beneficial ownership information in your business. So that's a big win for those that value business privacy and don't think the government should have all that kind of intel and information. So but it kind of went under the radar because of all of these other, because of his commutations and other things. People didn't notice some of the good wins that came out this past week.
What was the basis upon which they were alleging beneficial ownership? Was it side letters or was it some form of formal contract?
It was you were required to disclose who is a beneficial owner in any entity that you're a part of. So it was going to be, it's like the $600 thing where all of a sudden you had to say when you're paying the plumber and when you paid the babysitter, and all of a sudden you got to issue 1099s for all of them. Now they wanted the same thing. You were obligated, if you had any ownership interest or knowledge of ownership interest, to disclose information about that ownership interest. So it was intended to prevent all forms of financial privacy in the United States from the U.S. government.
Oh, that's interesting. Hold on a second. Before we're done with Biden. Okay, so we got the issue about mass pardons, potential. Sorry, that was it. Selling the pardons or selling the commutations. It's an investment at this point. He is on record now for being the president in modern history with the most pardons, commutations. Was it just a single day, or is he now breaking records for overall?
I think he's I'm actually for that part, breaking records overall, because I think our federal criminal system puts too many people behind bars. So if you just did it randomly, there's a better than 50-50 chance somebody you pardon doesn't belong in federal prison, in my experience, in the view of the system. So so I think so, and I hope Trump far exceeds it. Trump gave far too few pardons. I get he wanted to be tough law and order, but now he's seen how law and order can get abused, and he needs to issue mass pardon, and I think he will. I think every January 6th defendant's going to get pardoned. I don't think he's going to limit it to violent, non-violent. He's just going to say it's a bunch of crap. All the cases were crap. They were crap. They didn't get a fair trial with a judge. They didn't get a fair trial with a jury. They didn't get a fair trial process with the grand jury. Information was seized from them that was illegally seized. Information was failed to disclose. The entire process was contaminated. And I think on that predicate, he can say, look, we got a mass pardon. Now, if he wants to avoid spending 2 weeks defending January 6th all over again, then include high-profile names in that pardon list. Maybe a Leonard Peltier, a Native American that's long been in prison. He'll be disinclined to pardon anyone that's accused of anything violent other than the January 6th defendants, because he has doubts about whether the violent allegation is really true. But there's plenty of nonviolent people he could pardon. He could pardon Ed Snowden. He could pardon Julian Assange. He could pardon Roger Ver.
Ross Ulbricht.
Ross Ulbricht. You know, the FBI is so annoyed by it. They were bragging about how they prosecuted Ross Ulbricht this week. And I was like, and I can't seem to find where you guys talk about when you stole other people's Bitcoin for your personal enrichment. I'm trying to find where is that part of your Ross Ulbricht case there, FBI, IRS? Did you forget that one? They just kind of missed the boat. What about the falsified allegations where they claimed he was trying to get people killed that they totally made up just to scandalize them in front of the judge and the jury? Completely bogus allegations. One of the people who was behind his defense to make sure he got a defense, because what do they do when they do these kind of cases? They seize all your money so you can't pay any counsel. Roger Ver was Bitcoin Jesus, was the guy who came to Ross Ulbricht's defense. He helped get a buddy of mine, Joshua Dratel, by the way, is a hardcore lefty, to defend him. And Dratel said it was one of the most abusive cases he'd ever seen. So, you know, and there's a long litany of these cases across the country. And if I was the president, I would pardon as many of them as I could. To send the message that the wayward rogue days of lawfare is over. And the only way to do that is mass pardons, in my view. I hope he sets a record for pardons, and I hope he starts early and often. It's a great presidential power. I'm glad Biden is using it. I disagree with how he is using it, but I'm glad he is using it, because I think it's an underutilized presidential power for too long.
I'll bring it back up, this tweet from the FBI, which it was the weirdest tweet that I'd ever seen. The FBI tweets out today, December 20th, yesterday. On the Silk Road, a darknet site run by American cyber criminal Ross William Ulbricht, bargaining for illegal goods and services was as easy as clicking a button. Hashtag FBI investigators.
A true free market existed. What a horrendous thing. That's what they really just said. A true free market existed. That was what he did. It was so terrible. He allowed there to be a pure free market. That's what that is. It's Michael Moore's point that if Republicans believed in a free market, then Coca-Cola could sell crack. that nobody really does believe in a free market. They pretend they do, and then they recognize their inconsistencies and contradictions later. Ross Ulbricht was a guy who had no such contradictions. It's like people should be able to buy what they want to buy from one another in a voluntarism society, and it's up to them whether it's good or bad for them. And that's that. That's what he did. And mostly what it was is it was very easy to get drugs. It wasn't like they suddenly made it harder to get drugs, that much harder to get drugs when they got rid of him. All they did was prevent a mechanism of challenging their control over the markets more globally, because the drug market didn't go away. It just, in fact, they probably got more profits, because with a Silk Road, drugs were cheaper because there was competition in ways there's not when it's illegal. You're looking for your buddy, your pal that can get you something. So, but another case where the procedures utilized were badly abused, and that should be the common denominator. It was the common denominator with Trump. I mean, you saw how ridiculous that judge's ruling was. I mean, there's a lot of those that happen to people other than Trump. So mass pardons and mass commutations need to be coming down the pipeline.
I was going to say, in terms of Jan 6th, by the way, I'm going to definitively be in DC on January 6th for the press conference, pardon all the Jan 6ers that Jake Lang is putting on. The other one, as I'm just looking up of the Jay-Z case, and I see that Judge Annalisa Torres' name come up, and I go back to see where I heard of her before, and then I get into Brian Colfage, the We Build the Wall, triple amputee, American hero veteran, sitting in a fucking medical detention center because of his medical issues, I presume. He was sentenced or pleaded to 3 years, and he's sitting up there now, rotting away in a detention center. I hope to God that Trump pardons Colfage. Bonalad with the other guy.
Who else would be pardoned right up there? I mean, frankly, you could just pardon everybody in the Southern District of New York, an 80% chance you've got an innocent person. But the other one is Douglas Mackey. Remember the Bean guy? He should be pardoned day one as well. It's ridiculous that these people ever had to face any risk of prison time. Steve Bannon should be pardoned right away. Peter Navarro should be pardoned right away. All these people should be pardoned right away. So there's no more nonsense about all of this stuff. And the American people get educated about problems in our legal system and the remedial power of the pardon to fix that upon occasion. And I hope Trump takes full advantage of it.
I saw a big one come in here that is a member of our community. King of Biltong says, kick the new year off with some healthy, high-protein snacks. Biltong is packed with B12, iron, zinc, creatine, and more. Get some at biltongusa.com. Code VIVA for 10% off. Happy 2025.
You know who swears by Biltong now is Richard Paris. People's Pundit Daily. He's never eating beef jerky again. He says so much better for you, and so much better tasting.
There is no question that Biltong is like prosciutto made out of beef. It's soft, delicious, and the peri-peri, this is not a sponsored ad whatsoever, the peri-peri is the perfect level of spice. The Ghost Wagyu might be a little too spicy.
He's the king of Biltong. So, if he's the king of it, he's got to be good.
And we got the rest of those. And we're going to get to the locals side of this in a bit as well. Okay, so that's good. Damn well better get some parts. It seems like Biden has laid the... He's softened up the playing field to Trump coming in and bam, all of them, no questions asked.
I would throw in Hillary Clinton, throw in Bill Clinton, throw in Joe Biden, throw in some of those names. You want to. There's a lot of people who deserve it.
Rudy Giuliani. I see him.
But Clinton and the Bidens don't deserve it, but do it to screw with the media's head. Because how's the media going to even handle that? And you got to control the narrative. Trump is brilliant at it. Make sure to pardon January 6 people, all the people we listed, because they deserve it, and throw in a few Democrats to screw with the media that are not likely. Nobody's going to go prosecute Clintons anyway. No one's going to go prosecute the Bidens anyway.
Oh, pardon Tina Peters. You can't because it's a state level crime. Bannon out of the New York prosecution, you can't because they brought it to a state level crime now.
Well, what you could do is have Harmony Dillon as head of the Civil Rights Division open up a civil rights inquiry into whether state governments, including state courts, have been roguely using their power to target their political critics and dissidents. And that some of those investigations should include the Colorado judge in the Tina Peters case, should include Judge Merchan from New York, should include the Judge Nipples from New York, I think, and Fani Willis from Georgia. I think those would be 4 compelling cases for opening up federal civil rights investigations. And Harmeet is going to be the new nominee to run the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department. So we'll see. I mean, I know a lot of those people listen and process information. You got to prosecute somebody, folks, because you have almost half the country no longer believes in our legal system. To preserve our legal system, you have to prosecute the Fauci's, the George Soros's, the Bill Gateses. There's got to be somebody in that list that they recognize and say, okay, good. Our system is back to being an impartial system. You're not targeting them for partial reasons. You're targeting them because they violated their constitutional oath and violated the law. That's why they need to be prosecuted. And at least some of them have to be, or there's going to be a large number of Americans who give up on the legal system. And that usually never ends well.
So it's not half of America that doesn't believe in the system. It's the majority of America that thoroughly believes the system is thoroughly corrupt, partisan, and goes after political adversaries in a way that is wholly violative of civil rights. So we're going to clip this portion right here for a 1-minute short and get the message out there. Prosecute the good ones and prosecute the ones that deserve it, not as vengeance, but as justice.
Yeah, so that the American people can believe, the people around the world can believe. There's a cool, these African kids put on a play, and they recreated the Trump assassination. And so the little kid in the middle is doing the fight thing, right? That's how global this is. Our legal system is global. People used to believe in it. They don't anymore. It's going to be up to Harmeet Dillon and Pam and everyone else there at the Justice Department to restore that faith, and Kash Patel and the rest. And letting everybody walk won't restore that faith.
Speaking of which, I mean, the faith in the judicial system, this is not going to be any sort of transition, but Annalisa Torres, the judge who locked up or sentenced Colfage to 3 years in jail. Colfage, triple amputee war veteran, who's
with zero people complained about it. He raised money to build a wall. Nobody who gave him money complained about it, and yet they prosecuted him for fraud with no victims.
That was the Colfage, and this week she dismissed Jay-Z's attempt to have his civil suit that names him along with P. Diddy as rapists, alleged rapists, at a civil suit.
Somebody underage too, right?
Yeah, 13 years old at the time. The allegations. There are some inconsistencies in the story, and the plaintiff will have some issues to deal with in terms of historical inconsistencies at the time. But Jay-Z filed a motion which was to preclude the plaintiff from proceeding anonymously, failing which to dismiss the claim. And now I struggle with this because I do believe, the lawsuits should be public and people should not be able to be shielded when they decide to, use the court system for justice. Flip side, I can understand in certain cases where there would be egregious, overt intimidation, to say the least, or tinkering with the system just by virtue of making the plaintiff public. In this case, from what I understand, Jay-Z, Puff Daddy, they know who the plaintiff is. The allegations are rather specific, and they know who the plaintiff is. So it's not like they're being prejudiced, except for the fact that public pressure and public scrutiny would not be placed on the individuals who are the plaintiff's lawsuit. But the judge went through the criteria, said in this case it favors the plaintiff remaining anonymous for now. I mean, any hot take on Jay-Z's claim here, Jay-Z's suit?
Well, I think it was a correct ruling because when I sued on behalf of the Covington kids, I sued all as John Doe's. And the same issue arose, and the court correctly ruled that until trial, they don't have to disclose their names to the public. There's no special public interest in knowing their names, and there is a strong individual interest under the circumstances of that case in remaining anonymous. The way I put it in the Covington kids case is they shouldn't have to sacrifice their rights to enforce their rights. And in this case, sacrificing their right to be anonymous, unless you lose that once it's a trial, because trials have to be public proceedings, and then you can no longer be anonymous. And that becomes, but typically you should be allowed to be anonymous up until that point if you have good grounds. And they did have good grounds. You do have to wonder, there's a lot of photos of Jay-Z and P. Diddy. You got to wonder about the whole story with Jay-Z at this point. But was he another R. Kelly? Maybe that's why nobody in the rap industry cared that much about what R. Kelly was doing, as a whole bunch of the others were doing the same thing. So clearly there's, the P. Diddy list and the Epstein list are two lists I would like to see publicized. Oh, you're on mute. Still on mute, I think. I don't know how, but at least I can't hear you. I see the pod sticking out, but that's it. Don't know how that happened. Yeah, other people can't hear you either. Dos minutos. People's gonna figure it out. Maybe. Viva hit the wrong play button, you think? Oh, that's interesting. You somehow have muted yourself. Hop back in, maybe hop back out. Turn it off and back on again. That's what somebody recommended. Viva just sent you links. Okay, we'll take a look at that. What is it I'm supposed to be wrong about? You might have to Angel. See how this works. Any luck? Check, check. No, nada. Check all mute buttons. Oh, Airbnb scams. Yes, I can talk. I'll talk about the Airbnb scams while Viva figures out the volume. So Airbnb started as a company that pretended, like a lot of these companies, to be tech companies, like Uber, really a cab company disguised as a tech company. Airbnb was the same, that they were just hooking up people who wanted to rent out their houses or apartments as vacation rentals. I was one of the very first members of Airbnb, used it for many, many years because I prefer those kind of accommodations to hotels. Also, we were doing trials. Usually it was multiple people. It was more affordable to put 4 people in a house than it was to put 4 people in 4 separate hotel rooms. And then also we can, rather than having to rent like a conference center or something else where we could store legal materials, it's very easy to use some part of the house, the kitchen, wherever, as the sort of centerpiece of operations. And so big Airbnb fan until lately. So there's been increasing criticisms of Airbnb because a lot of people thought they could make easy money in Airbnb. So you saw this explosion, particularly in really hot markets like Dallas and Austin, and Vegas and Phoenix and Florida, that they would just be easy moneymaker. Problem was, didn't realize the more the supply went up, unless demand matched it, they were going to actually start suffering issues, and they have started suffering issues. So what Airbnb has done, Airbnb makes almost half of their profit solely from getting people to advance pay their rent. Is effectively what happens. People, let's say they're 6 months out and they rent a place. They pay Airbnb. That money doesn't go to the owner. Airbnb then takes that money, invests it in the market, doesn't protect that money, as really should be the case. Like that was a true landlord. They have to safeguard it in a separate any security deposit in a separate bank account. Not Airbnb. They're investing that money. Over half of their profit comes from the time delay of when they have to transfer funds to the owner. So they're right away kind of sketchy in terms of their operation. But the second aspect of what Airbnb figured out was that they could gain an edge over their competitors by having a robust review process. So the owner gets to give a review. The tenant gets to counteract that review. The tenant gets to give a review. The owner gets to counteract that review. And the confidence is, if you're a customer out there, you can see whether anybody's ever had a problem with either that tenant or that host. The issue was, as you dig in, the problem became bad host got exposed because people could look up the tenant and see that tenant, let's say, has been around for 10 years, has all good reviews, has always made good reviews for the most part. If they're saying something bad about an owner or a host, that means there's a real problem with that owner or that host. And so in order to counterbalance that, Airbnb, unbeknownst to the public, because it continues to lie to people about its reviews, it says a review can only be taken down for rule violation. Well, I know from personal experience. Go ahead. You're still on mute somehow. So is the so I know from personal experience, because I've used it for many years. Ran into a landlord that the property wasn't as described, like the lights. It felt like going to a Deliverance movie sequel or something. Yeah, going up the hill with no lights. Then you get there and things aren't they aren't really the way they described it as. I usually don't care too much as long as it's manageable, sustainable. But this person kind of agitated me, so I was going to give an honest review. As soon as I gave that review, he made a review that was false, that completely misled about what he was going to do, about what happened and what happened to the property. So I point out to the people at Airbnb, this guy just wrote a fake review, and that's an issue, and I should have a chance to respond. Airbnb has now removed the ability for guests to respond to false host posts on the guest page, which what that can do is that can effectively prevent the guest from ever being able to rent on Airbnb again. The second thing that they're doing is they're prohibiting the guest from responding to what the host says. But what they're also doing is anytime the host is requesting a takedown, they are increasingly granting removal of negative reviews, even a negative review that didn't violate any of the rules, in direct contravention of their public promises. And so the other thing they're doing is they're still covering for these hosts who have decided to do disguised fees as cleaning fees. So like in this particular case, the host charged me a cleaning fee of $180 for just a 2-day stay. And when I left, the only thing I left is I forgot to pick up things that I'd left in the basement where the movie room was. That was it. Minor. It'll take you 20 minutes and $30 to pay someone to clean that up. He had already charged $180 for the cleaning fee. I don't even think he pays $180 in cleaning fee. I know people that they just charge a cleaning fee. They do the work themselves. There's no independent cleaning fee really involved. So the cleaning fee. So what's happening is you have multiple levels of fraud. You have Airbnb pretending they're a tech company when they're not. They're really a mass landlord. Number one. Number two, and they're really employing their host. Their hosts are not really independent contractors the way their relationship develops. Second, they're misleading everybody about the nature of their review process. Their review process is completely controlled behind the scenes. So if you see somebody with 100 perfect reviews, probably fake. Some of those reviews probably fake. Some of the reviews that were given that were honest were probably taken down because that's the nature of the animal, what they've done. And then third, last but not least, Airbnb scam, one of their many scams, is allowing their host to charge cleaning fees and then bill you later for you not doing the cleaning. And it's like, what was the cleaning fee for then? So I think Airbnb's on the clock. I think they got 10 years of operation. They continue to be sleazier and sleazier and sleazier. Because like here you have someone like me who's one of their founding guests, right? One of their founding members, if you will. And yet they wouldn't respond with anything more than an AI-driven email response. No, I was like, okay, how exactly did my review, which got taken down, said, how did my review break any of the rules? Cite the rules. Can't cite it. They just respond with, well, your post broke the rules. That's why we removed it. Like, okay, how did my post break the rules? Your post broke the rules, so that's why we removed it. How did it break the rules? Your post broke the rules, so that's why we removed it. That's the world.
By the way,
now I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. Look, guys. The joke about the get an H1B visa guy to help me with the tech. I don't use Bluetooth connection. I don't like it. I believe it will cause brain problems. Those are my kids' earbuds. I was only using them because there's some background noise and they cut out the noise. So I'm on the native mic, so you might hear some background noise, but I'll mute it. Robert, now I can talk. When you describe your Airbnb, I had a similar experience with my wife where we went to, I won't name it because I'm not trying to put anybody on blast. I could have destroyed the person. We go there, we take our dogs, and it was not at the time the paralyzed one. It was like the functional dog, just a good dog. And we get there, and the guy says, no dogs. I was like, first of all, we booked it, and it said dog friendly. We drove 12 hours. It's like it was. And he's like, well, you can drive into town 3 hours away and maybe put the dog in the kid. So bottom line, the guy allows, he what's the word? Makes a concession. There was no concession because we booked it anyhow. We cleaned up the place ourselves. We spent 3 hours cleaning it up. We paid the whatever it was, the fee. And then the guy, after we left a positive review, left a negative review of us. We've never had a negative review at an Airbnb in our lives, and I felt genuinely violated. Like it's such a first world problem, but when you're describing that was my experience. Like you pay for the cleaning fee and then get charged extra. You leave a positive review, and then after your review is in, they leave a negative review of you as an Airbnb patron. I mean, it's just it was a broken process, but that was my insight.
I mean, Airbnb is basically a big fraud. Like all the criticism you can make of Uber, you can make of Airbnb times 10. They encouraged and incentivized a bunch of people to go out and get these properties, promising them, look at how much money you're going to make, knowing that it's good for Airbnb because Airbnb just wants volume. It doesn't care whether you, the homeowner, make any money at all. It only cares about whether they got more property online that they can market that will increase their net profit. And so they deliberately induced a bunch of hosts to purchase properties and use their properties for Airbnb purposes, and many of them have found it doesn't work. Because you do have obviously the reverse version. You have the bogus tenant who extorts hosts into a preferential treatment on the grounds they'll give them a negative review unless they get certain things. So I get where it came from, where the concern was, but now it's gotten so bad that they're just basically Airbnb is just a walking, talking fraud operation. They're currently being sued for a bunch of other fraud scams. They're facing class actions in multiple courts that could bankrupt them because of how systemic and systematic their fraudulent behavior has become. I mean, so
I want to say I brought up.
I've used them for 12 years. I was like, that's it. If they won't even give me the time of day to talk to me on the phone, they won't even review the underlying facts or data at all. If it's that fixed, I don't want to be a part of it. And so I canceled my Airbnb membership.
No, and first of all, I brought up that comment before as a joke where it said that's what I get for leaving a false positive review. I wasn't trying to buy a positive review. I thought the guy had made a genuine concession to allow us to stay there with the dog. The place was beautiful. It was on the ocean. Where was it? It was in the Maritimes. It was beautiful. It wasn't a false positive review, but I felt, and we paid a lot. I mean, but the bottom line, I tell Marion now, like I would rather just take my chances with the hotel. At least in a sense, you're dealing with a corporate structure, but you're dealing with, on the one hand, shady business dealings, a-holes, and also like I can't rely on the fact that there's no video cameras recording me walk around the house naked. Like I don't trust these things anymore. But
people run into all those problems, crimes being committed towards the either the host or the guest that are undisclosed. I mean, it's just Airbnb is a disaster. And I had kind of ignored these increasing complaints, and then I experienced it firsthand, and I was like, okay, I'm done. I won't be part of something that's just becoming a fraudulent enterprise. And I think Airbnb is. What people didn't realize about Uber and a lot of these companies, their sole goal of charging low amounts was to monopolize the market. And then as soon as they monopolized the market, they were going to charge more than had ever been charged. And people are starting to experience the backlash with that. But I think that means some of these big tech businesses may not survive. Because once they unleash who they really are, people aren't liking the experience.
Now, Robert, we're going to do our locals only portion, but I'm not doing this. I had an issue downloading the stream from last week, and I want to snip and clip it. It makes it very difficult. So I'm going to leave this up live, but we're going to go over metaphorically to locals only because I don't know. First of all, I'm not going to be able to upload this and then snip and clip. So I'm going to leave it where I can get it from. But let me go over to Rumble because locals we've got. First of all, what else do we have left on the menu? Do we have anything left on the menu?
I mean, those were the main topics that I remember.
Okay. I'm going to get to the tipped questions over on locals because I see we got Little Rock, Arkansas attorney is back in the house. Little Rock attorney. I own several short-term rentals in Branson, Missouri. Some states require us to pay a, quote, professional, end quote, cleaner to come in and change all bedding. I've been getting screwed by my manager host for a little over a year. They are at the point of not being worth staying in unless it's for more than 4 days. And, oh, by the way, that's what I wanted to bring up before I forgot. Where was it? Here, Justin Trudeau. There are more than 200,000 short-term rentals across the country, like Airbnbs and Verbos, that could be turned into housing. So we're giving cities more resources to crack down on those rentals and unlock more homes for Canadians. I mean they're going to turn them into hotel rooms.
Yeah, there's been criticism along those lines, but at least New York hasn't proven out so far. So New York, a lot of cities are just banning Airbnbs, but those cities are not suddenly experiencing a decline in rental price, because it's just too global a phenomenon throughout the country. And with the mortgage rate issues on top of that, the ability to reduce Airbnb and these other vacation rental footprint most likely won't have a big impact on the local real estate market, at least if New York is an example. But it is one of the ongoing issues is there were so many of those homes converted in that way that it probably increased price a couple of years ago when it first started. How much it's dictating price now is up in the air.
Let me do. You know what we'll do? We're gonna do the locals portion only on Rumble and locals, so that way I can be sure that I can get the video if I need to upload a clip. But hold on, let me just close some stuff in the backdrop here and read a couple of the super chats over on CommieTube from Marcel Cheka. Oh no, that's from last week. Where are the ones from this week? We got. I'd prefer to get rid of DEI so people are hired based on merit than create a tech school. Benny D, I got to that one. There was another one from International Golf. H1S are job security for those that can't get fired. That's from CommieTube, and this was much needed. Thanks, Barnes. Yeah, we had people who really, first of all, we needed to do this before the new year. Bring it in. Everybody, I'm going to give everyone the link. You got the link over to Rumble. CommieTube, come on over to Locals or Rumble, and we're going to have the what would otherwise be the Locals only portion, only on Rumble and Locals. So I'm going to end it. Well, for everybody out there, even on CommieTube, if you're not coming over, Happy New Year if we don't see each other before then. But Robert, this has been fantastic, and it's great that you're back and back to health. So what we're going to do now, Rumble and Locals, CommieTube, come on over, and Twitter, sorry about it. And this way I can make sure that I can pull everything that we need if I want to snip and clip something for tomorrow, updating the stream. Bada bing.